The Volvo EX30 is the company's smallest electric car, a compact SUV that's offered with a range of between 214 and 296 miles, with prices starting from around £32,000. Now this is a really interesting car. This is a small, compact electric SUV. In fact, it is the smallest electric car that Volvo has ever made, and it's quite significant because it's sort of starting a bit of a new era for them. You won't be able to get this car as petrol, it's electric only. It's going to be offered with a range of about 214 miles in the smaller battery up to about 296 miles in the larger battery, and prices start from under £32,000 when that smaller battery car comes to the market in the UK. You can order it now. Deliveries start from early 2024 for the larger battery cars anyway. Behind me I've got the rear wheel drive, and you can also get this thing with a four-wheel drive performance model that does 3.8 seconds to 62 miles an hour, which is kind of bonkers when you think about it. Now, the EX30 is classed as a small SUV. The company would point to the chunky tyres and higher roof, but actually it's about 4 centimetres higher than a Volkswagen Golf and is a bit lower than a Volkswagen ID3. So I'd say the jury's out on whether this is an SUV or a hatchback with clever marketing. Nonetheless, at 4.2 metres long, it's still pretty compact, and yet it's roomy on the inside. You'll get a couple of adults behind 2 up front, although there is no centre armrest in the back and very little footroom under the front seats, which is a shame. The boot is 318 litres, so you do get a bigger boot in the Jeep Avenger or Fiat 600e, for instance, but the Volvo's variable floor is really useful and you get a bit of cable storage in the nose of the car too. The materials in the Volvo and the clever storage and layout all feel really smart and unmistakably Volvo, while the design, especially with the single touchscreen readout offering all of the controls in the car and the speedo, is a touch closer to Tesla or even Volvo's own Polestar EV brand. So, how does the Volvo EX30 drive? The first thing to say is that it's very refined, and what I really like is that the ride comfort seems to be really good. It's got a bit of a slightly heavy thump around town, I find, at lower speeds, but not really that noticeable. I think by the standards of most electric cars, this is one of the more comfortable, and at higher speeds it really seems to sort of settle down quite nicely. There is a fair bit of body roll, but not too bad. I think possibly my big issue is that the steering feels quite quick to me, and slightly inconsistent. You have got 3 different steering weights to choose from. I find the mid and the firm really similar. There's not a whole lot difference in it, and the lighter one is just too light, I think. So I prefer it mid or firm. So even on the motorway, you can just feel like it's you're sort of correcting yourself a bit more than you would want to. So I'm driving the single motor, so that's rear wheel drive. And you're talking about 0 to 60 in, it's about 5.6 seconds, and that is still really quite rapid. Electric cars, it's so easy to give them performance. It's kind of almost too easy. I mean, the dual motor version of this, 3.8 seconds. You're talking about it's Porsche 911 speeds in a Volvo family hatchback. It's just kind of unnecessary. And yet the truth is that if you did dial back that performance, you wouldn't even get that much of a significant increase in efficiency. So you might as well give it a billion horsepower and make it do 0 to 62 in under 4 seconds, you know? I think what I find more significant about the EX30 rather than the way it drives is really the interior design. Like I've mentioned, the materials in here, I really like them. There is something a little bit kitchen countertoppy about this sort of spotty one here, which is actually made from the residue of denim recycling process. Volvo really has gone to town to try and use as many recycled products as it possibly can. If you add up all the recycled bits they've used in the upholstery and the plastics and all the metals and things, then it's getting on for 70% recycled materials in here. So fair play to Volvo for that. Of course, Volvo is very keen on its safety, so you've got your pilot assist, which is now very Tesla-like. So you have a little readout on the screen here showing you where the other vehicles on the road are. You can put it into pilot assist by pulling down this gear lever here, and it will steer for you, and it will keep a distance between the car in front. You can also adjust how close you want to get and this kind of thing, and it will change lane for you. I find that actually quite good. I think it centres itself in the lane quite well, and it sort of responds quite smoothly. So it's one of the better semi-autonomous systems, I would say. I wish they offered a head-up display, ideally as an affordable option or as standard on the EX30, because I still miss having a speedo directly in front of me. Volvo's safety people tell us that it takes much the same time to look over here onto the screen as it does to look down to a driver's readout. Maybe that's so, but I still find that having it directly in your line of sight is better. I would prefer that, and I find that for the sake of having an optional head-up display, that seems like a sane thing to offer. I have to say it, there is a lot of parallels that can be drawn between this car and the sort of interfaces that you find in Tesla. It's just unavoidable that you sort of get into this car and you think, oh, well, that's very much like what Tesla does with the drive controls in the screen, and you've got your fixed climate controls in the screen, and the fact that there's no buttons and all of that stuff. the same way that Volvo has sort of minimalised a lot of its interior so that obviously it's the same for left and right hand drive to keep manufacturing costs down. It's just common sense, and I don't mind it. I don't consider that a bad thing because it does feel very much like a Volvo. It doesn't feel like a Tesla. You just sit in it, particularly if you've been in a Tesla and you think, oh, that's quite similar. I really like the EX30. I think it's a really interesting car. The fact that you can get it from sort of £400 per month and up, and I think next to rivals like the Jeep Avenger, the Volkswagen ID3, the Smart #1, well, I think there's certainly something of a brand luster and a design intrigue to this car that really gives it something over its rivals. I do think the EX30 is a really sweet little thing, and I've really enjoyed driving it out here on the launch. Overall, the EX30 is a really interesting and very likeable car. It's a very tempting proposition next to the Volkswagen ID3, the Jeep Avenger, the Peugeot E2008. There is a host of rivals out there that arguably don't feel as modern and fresh and interesting as the EX30, and the little Volvo drives really well too. Our big issue is with that interface with the touchscreen, which doesn't feel like it's been laid out as sensibly as it could be. But otherwise, this does promise to be a great car to live with, and potentially a really nice little premium car at a good price. Don't forget to head to cargurus.co.uk for a whole host of fantastic used cars, including loads of EVs, and while we've got you, please do like the video, subscribe to the CarGurus UK YouTube channel, and turn your notifications on so that you don't miss any of our videos.